Okay, we're live. What's up, everybody? We're just here to recap UFC 270 from last night in Ngannou versus Gane. Pretty good card, top to bottom. Uh, I actually kind of thought that some of the pre-fights were more entertaining than the main card fights, but all in all, good night, right? I go on call tomorrow, and my wife is going downtown with her friend to drink wine this afternoon, so I have permission to do some day drinking and have like a little Sunday fun day. I'm drinking this Big Thompson. What's it called? Hey, Juicy IPA. Not bad. And yeah, I had one earlier. Anyway, uh, let's get started talking about a lot of controversy around whether Deiveson Figueiredo and Moreno won the fight. The main event between Francis Ngannou and Cyril Gane certainly didn't play out the way I thought it was going to. Francis made some huge improvements in his wrestling game and his jiu-jitsu game, man. He hit a nice sweep. And yeah, but anyway, we'll get there. We're going to work from the bottom of the card up, and we'll talk more in depth about the main events and the main card stuff, obviously. But first fight on the card was Jasmine. I struggle with her name, and I just literally listened to John Anik say it. Jasmine Jasudavicius. That's how I'm going to say it. I don't know if it's right or not. It's probably fucking wrong, but she fought Kay Hansen. And Kay Hansen honestly just kind of struggled with the wrestling, the grappling, the strength, and the reach. Even when Hansen was able to kind of initiate the clinch and the takedowns and stuff, Jasmine was able to just gain top position, and pretty dominant win for her. And she advances to 7-1. Somebody to look out for. I thought she looked impressive in that fight, and I think Kay Hansen's pretty good. She had her moments, right, but just wasn't enough to overcome the pressure that Jasmine Jasudavicius was putting on. Next fight we had was between. Oh my God, I struggle with these. So Silvana Juarez versus Vanessa Demopla. See, I'm fucking these names up. I don't know why. I did the same thing yesterday. I struggled with both of these names. Vanessa Demopoulos. Maybe Demopoulos is correct. I don't know. But either way, she got dropped. Silvana Juarez hit her with this big right hand, right? Dropped her. And then Gomez Juarez hopped on top and started hitting her with some ground and pound and stuff. And I honestly think, and I think Vanessa said this as well, she kind of came awake on the ground, but she immediately started hunting for a submission, and she ended up hitting a beautiful armbar, got underneath the leg, hit a sweep. I actually think I'm going to do a breakdown of this fight, so keep a lookout for that one. I think this would be a cool one to break down. And yeah, made a big splash by jumping into Joe Rogan's arms afterwards, right? So I don't know, maybe Rogan's wife will be pissed at him, but for Vanessa, I mean, hey, good publicity. You're going to make it's a good way to get your name out there. And it was a big win for her after getting rocked. So that was a fun one. Then we move on to those were the two early prelims. Now we move on to and honestly, what the fuck is the difference? They're all on, well, no, that's not true. I guess these main prelims were on ESPN, like the cable network, right? But anyway, we get to the prelims, and Matt Frevola is going up against Genaro Valdez. And this fight was fucking chaos, man. I mean, Matt Frevola dropped this guy like I don't even know how many times, 5 or 6 different times, and just kept hitting him with shot after shot. And it was like, even though they were wobbling Genaro and they were like knocking him down and all this shit, like they weren't putting him out. And eventually, Matt Frevola had to get top. He like achieved mount and was able to flatten him out and land ground and pound from there. And even then, when the fight was over, it's not like he knocked him out. Like this Genaro Valdez dude is so tough, man. So tough. This was an exciting fight, though. Valdez had his moments, but all in all, the steamroller lived up to his name, man, and he steamrolled him. He did. He flattened him out, got the victory, and a fun fight to open up the prelims, the main prelims, I guess, or whatever, right? So big win for Matt Frevola, especially I think he's coming off two losses now, and that 7-second knockout loss over Terrence McKinney. So this was a big one for him to rebound, and he looked good, and it was an exciting fight. He's a guy who just always brings it, man. Fun guy to watch. Let's see. Next fight was Tony Gravely versus Simon Oliveira. When this fight kicked off, man, I think I want to say that Simon Oliveira came out and he threw like a flying knee, and it ended up like resulting in like a takedown attempt from Gravely, but he was stuck in a deep guillotine, and Gravely eventually worked his way out of it. And, you know, Simon Oliveira was threatening with stuff constantly, always hunting for that guillotine. But this was just it's so important, guys, in fighting to be able to wrestle and maintain top position. It is so important to be on top. It is hard to be on the bottom because when you're on the bottom, you can get hit in the face. And like, I think a lot of guys get trapped and they start thinking like they probably have a lot of success when they play their guard game in the gym and they do jiu-jitsu. But when that gets into a real fight, right? And not like sparring, not like a training fight. When it comes time for a real fight, a lot of the times that shit falls apart, man. And it's a lot harder to fight from the bottom. So Tony Gravely just got through on this one with his wrestling experience, right? Um, I thought he could have did a little more on in terms of like doing damage and stuff, but all in all, he controlled the positions. Simon Oliveira, this was a hard fought victory, and I think a big learning experience from him, right? Oliveira's 18-4 now. So I still think this guy's a lot of promise, but this is one of those fights that you go through and go, okay, I know that I have a good guillotine. I know that I've hit it before in fights, but when I get to this UFC level and I'm fighting guys of this caliber who can wrestle, there have to be different layers to my game, and I have to put emphasis on, perhaps if I do get on the bottom, achieving top position somehow, whether it be through a sweep or whatever. A guillotine is just such a dangerous, and a lot of the times, guys, too, like when they lock it up, they'll hop guard, right? They jump guard to try to finish the guillotine, and then they end up getting taken down, and the guy eventually pops his head out. And it's a hard submission to finish as it is. Like you have to have a lot of details in place to hit a guillotine, and especially in fighting, it seems, right? So early on, I didn't hate the attempt because first round, you're both dry. You probably had a deep purchase on the guy's neck, and you maybe had a better chance to strangle him early. But as the fight starts to wear on, um, I really favor trying to sweep to get on top or just getting back to your feet so that you're not spending time on bottom. I'm completely with Michael Bisping on stuff like this. I really don't like when guys start hunting for submissions too much from the bottom, because after the first or second failed attempt, it's going to start getting harder and harder to get back to your feet. And another good option is if you are hunting for the submission and you keep you'll see a lot of guys who are good at playing from the bottom in the UFC. They hunt for these submissions, right? And a lot of the times they almost get them, right? Like they lock something up and you're like, oh, it's close, but then the guy just barely manages to escape. I really like using submissions to get back to your feet. I think that's a good game plan. So if you're the kind of person who can threaten, but you're not finishing them, use that as an advantage and opportunity. Usually some space will open up when the person escapes and you can use it as an opportunity to get back to your feet, right? And you hear guys like John Danaher talk about that all the time, like using submission threats and stuff like that to open up other possibilities. And I think that in MMA in general, it could use a lot more of people trying to, use those submission attempts, because they fail a lot of the time from the bottom, but using them as a way to get back to your feet. So some improvement there for Simon Oliveira that he needs to work on, some things to work on. Jack Della Maddalena. I'm going to mispronounce all these fucking names, guys. I can never remember. I'm terrible with names. Anyway, he looked great. And this guy that he fought, Pete Rodriguez, I was watching his highlights before the fight and I was like, oh, fuck, this guy can throw his hands around. He can box a little bit, right? But he started off, this Rodriguez guy started off well. He was trading a little bit with him, but eventually Jack just started working the jab, and then the follow-ups were coming after, and eventually it led to him and Joe Rogan nailed it. I mean, sliding perfectly out of range, coming back in, tagging him with stuff, and eventually he landed a big left hand that dropped Pete Rodriguez, and then he swarmed him and got the finish. And Jack Della Maddalena is a guy that you got to be excited about. Only 25 years old, fighting out of Australia, UFC debut, and he gets the finish in under 3 minutes. Big deal for him and a great performance. He's a guy to look out for, man. Really exciting stuff. This next fight between Raoni Barcelos and Victor Henry, in my opinion, Moreno versus Figueiredo was a good fight, no doubt. This to me was kind of fight of the night, and undoubtedly the performance of the night. Victor Henry came out and made a fucking statement, man. You guys got to realize too, Raoni Barcelos is good. He has a victory over Said Nurmagomedov, a guy we're going to talk about in a couple minutes. And you guys saw how he looked against Cody Stamann, one of the top-ranked bantamweights for a while, top flight competition, and Said just ran through him. And Raoni Barcelos has a victory over him, right? And Victor Henry, man, just came out and he kept the pace up, and he kept up with him, no problem. Started off the first round a little bit slow, but as the round progressed, at about maybe like the halfway point of the first round, he really started getting in a rhythm and responding, right? Barcelos was able to land takedowns at certain points in the fight, but it was never enough to kind of swing it in his favor. Second round, very competitive round, and I thought that Victor Henry definitely won the third. I could have seen this being a 29-28. I was kind of surprised that it was 30-27 across the board. It was a very competitive fight. I definitely felt like Henry won, but Yeah, man. To me, this was the performance of the night, especially because, like I said, you know how good Raoni Barcelos is, and Victor Henry came into this fight as a massive underdog. Like people did not expect him to win this fight, and man, he just fought his ass off. And I also just like his awareness in the post-fight interview, right? Like saying, "I'm 34 years old. I got one crack at this, maybe two. Like I got a couple runs that I can make, but I got to make the most of it." And he looked great. He looked well prepared, especially taking this fight on 2 weeks' notice, guys. I mean, originally, Raoni Barcelos was supposed to fight Trevin Jones, and then he fell out, and they called up Victor Henry, and they were like, "Hey, man, 2 weeks, Raoni Barcelos, like a really fucking talented opponent," and he took the fight, and he went out and, man, exceeded everybody's expectations. I was super impressed by his composure. I was super impressed by the pace that he was able to keep. His striking was very technical. He wasn't afraid to engage in those exchanges and stuff. And again, Barcelos had like a slight wrestling advantage, but he was never able to keep Victor Henry down. He was always right back up to his feet, threatening with the submission, like we just talked about, right? He would threaten with a submission attempt, kind of get back to his feet, and then boom, right back to work. So great win for Victor Henry. And this was a great way to close out the prelims before moving over to the main card, right? This to me was the most impressive performance of Ngannou's performance. We're going to talk more about it, obviously, but I actually thought his performance was super impressive, all things considered, right? Anyway, that's how we end the prelims, and we transitioned over to the main card that you guys had to pay fucking $75 for, which is outrageous, especially because, like, if you're going to charge us $75, and I know most people stream it, whatever. I can't even say I fucking blame you. But if you're going to charge us $75, could we at least, like, I know it's Ngannou, right? And I know it's Brandon Moreno, 2 titles are on the line, but the rest of the card, in my opinion, was a little bit weak. Like, I didn't think that the names were there. Like, I mean, I just felt like there could have been better quality matchups stacked in there for the first pay-per-view of the year. And you just announced to everybody, "Oh yeah, pay-per-views are now $75." But whatever, man. I digress. It's an unfortunate reality, but I'm gonna pay for them. Like I want to watch the shit. So that's just how it goes, right? But we kick off the main card, and Michael Morales has a matchup against Trevin Giles. Michael Morales is a young kid, 22 or 20. I think he's 22 still, maybe on the verge of 23, making his UFC debut against a guy who has a lot of experience. He's fought guys like James Krause, right? And Trevin Giles is very talented. But one of the things that I talked about in like the breakdown that I did of this fight that Trevin Giles has a bad tendency to do is he leaves his hands down. And then another thing that I forgot to mention that he has a bad tendency of doing is when he hurts his opponents, I've seen him do this in several fights, and I didn't talk about it in the breakdown, and I wish I would have. When he hurts his opponents and gets them backing up against the cage, he should really be looking for space and looking to capitalize that and ride that momentum while the person's hurt, right? Like you got to smell blood and you got to be willing to hunt for that shit. Trevin Giles will hurt somebody and then engage in the clinch immediately. And it's like you're giving your opponent a chance to recover. So not a big fan of that tendency that he has, but he did rock Michael Morales. But then that clinch, I think it allowed Michael Morales to slowly work his way back into the fight. And as Morales worked his way back into the fight, man, he started finding openings and he rocked Trevin Giles and was able to finish him. And this was a pick'em fight. I think the odds were like literally like minus 110 apiece, so a real pick'em. And I didn't know what to make of this fight because, like I said, you see this overconfidence from Trevin Giles where he drops his hands and stuff, right? And he gets a little bit overzealous with stuff. He kind of reaches on things, overextends a little bit, like kind of too confident, right? And Michael Morales was able to take advantage of that, and he looked really good making his UFC debut against a veteran, right? A guy with a couple fights under his belt, a couple of big wins under his belt, and yeah, man, hats off to Michael Morales. I think he has a lot of talent, some things that he needs to clean up. I think his striking could be a little bit sharper. I think he needs to work on like keeping it a little tighter, coming down the pipe with things a little bit more. But all in all, man, he looked good, and that's a big win for you as a 22-year-old in your UFC debut. All right, the next fight, Said Nurmagomedov versus Cody Stamann. This fight was one that when I was thinking about it, I thought this fight was going to be super competitive, right? I really felt like Cody Stamann was going to be able to take advantage of the fact that Said Nurmagomedov spins a lot, uses a lot of spinning techniques. And when you're a strong wrestler, and you expose your back, and someone exposes their back, it oftentimes creates opportunities for you to get the fight to the ground, right? And you saw that. Well, first off, when the fight opened up, Said Nurmagomedov landed a beautiful spinning back fist and followed it up immediately with a well-timed spinning kick. And I kind of thought the kicks might be a problem, but his timing on it was great. And then Stamann starts kind of getting a little bit desperate, pushing stuff up against the cage. And Said tries to spin again. And Cody Stamann gets in on a takedown attempt, right? Which was like, I was like, here we go. Here comes the wrestling. But Said Nurmagomedov got an underhook on that one side, turned to face Cody Stamann, and then hit a fucking beautiful ninja choke. And if you guys want to see like a detailed breakdown on that, I have one on my channel. I just put it out last night. It's like a detailed breakdown that kind of explains some of the details that led to Nurmagomedov hitting this ninja choke. I mean, beautifully set up. And that ninja choke, guys, is basically like you get a guillotine, but you have like a rear naked choke grip cinched up, right? Like, but he hit like an Uchimata, Sumigaeshi, like some judo concepts in there that he hit in order to do this. And this was a beautiful performance from Said Nurmagomedov. And like I said, Cody Stamann, man, he's fought some quality opponents. Like, I mean, granted, he's lost to a lot of them too, but he's fought like Aljamain Sterling, Jimmy Rivera, Marab. Like, he's faced high-level guys, and we've never seen anybody handle Cody Stamann the way that Said Nurmagomedov did. And one of the we talked about Raoni Barcelos earlier. Like, one of the things that I really felt like Said Nurmagomedov did well was, or I'm sorry, Raoni Barcelos did well in his fight against Said Nurmagomedov was time those takedowns, right? Whenever Said would spin, like he threw a spinning back kick, and Raoni Barcelos was able to take him down like in the third round and get control there, right? The spinning techniques are costly, but Said Nurmagomedov was clearly prepared, had clearly worked even more on his takedown defense. And in fact, he was able to get a combination off, or I'm sorry, a submission. Too much fucking beer, right? He was able to get a submission off of the takedown attempt. And he just did a great job of like controlling the head of Cody Stamann, right? And using, I mean, beautiful job. Like I said, I have a breakdown out on it. If I don't want to spend too much time like going over stuff, when you could just go there and get the video and like the kind of concepts explained. So anyway, super impressive performance from Nurmagomedov. And you got a title challenge. Not like he has some fights to go. Don't get me wrong. Like, he has to fight some heavier competition, but you got a guy that you got to worry about at 135, man. Bad motherfucker at bantamweight. And Dagestan is on fire right now. It's crazy. Crazy. Yeah, Dennis. Yeah, I'm bad at keeping up with the live chat, guys. Like, I've just started going live recently, but yeah, Cody got dusted, man. He did, and he wasn't paying attention to the positioning of his neck when he shot for the double leg that led to the choke, right? And got his hands broken apart, tried to hunt for a single, but again, that head can. And when you got a ninja choke locked up, man, and you're draping yourself over the top of your opponent's back, tough shit to get out of. And Nurmagomedov hit a beautiful sweep. Like I said, that like Sumigaeshi that led to him being able to finish that choke. And like I keep plugging it, but check out the breakdown. Anyway, moving on. Michel Pereira versus Andre Fialho. This was a fight, guys, where I seriously thought that Michel Pereira was just going to blitz through this guy. Because if you watch him, he's fought some big names. This is the guy who I mentioned last time. He knocked out James Vick, right? He was the last fight of James Vick's career. He has fought Chris Curtis in PFL. Granted, he lost that fight, but he still has, you know, you guys know Chris Curtis came in, knocked out Phil Hawes. Like, he's made this, like, he's been the underdog in both of his fights, got big wins, blah, blah, blah. So Andre Fialho has seen some high-level competition, right? Stefan Sekulic, too, knocked him out. So coming into this fight, though, you know, you watch this fight against, like, Dos Santos Jr. back in LFA, and when the kicks started coming and stuff, it really slowed him down, and I feel like Andre Fialho kind of has a cardio problem. Well, he fights a little bit flat-footed, and he takes a very boxing-heavy approach, right? I kind of thought that Fialho was going to struggle with cutting off Pereira because of his movement, because his movement's so complex, and he's always doing it, stabbing you with different stuff, right? And in the first round, Michel Pereira was able to land like some big shots and stuff, but all in all, Fialho was cutting the octagon off great, like staying patient, throwing big shots at him, throwing combinations when he had him backed up against the cage. And then, without a doubt, he won the first round. Andre Fialho looked very impressive. And if you looked at the live odds, they dropped to like, he was like a minus like 200 or 300 favor or some shit on the live odds. I was like, holy fuck, this is way different than I thought it was going to play out. But then the second round starts, and Pereira starts getting things together a little bit, right? Landing big overhand rights and shit, varying his attacks, kicking a lot more, getting ahead on the movement. And you guys saw that by the time the third round came around, Fialho wasn't able to keep that pace up. And instead of cutting the octagon off, he was following Pereira around, which is kind of what I thought it would be the whole time. But Fialho actually did a good job. And I think this was a good fight for him to go through. Michel Pereira is no joke, man. Tough opponent. And you didn't really start to see him lose the like footwork battle until like the second round. Like he did very well in the first round, but just wasn't able to maintain it over the course of 3 rounds. I still think that's a lot that has to do with conditioning. And you'll see a lot of the times that when guys throw a lot of kicks against Andre Fialho, he freezes up. And I think it's because he's like, he doesn't have a kick heavy game of his own. Like he doesn't really have a lot of kicks in his arsenal. I don't even know if he threw one in the fight, to be honest. I don't know if I've ever seen him throw one. I mean, he's thrown a kick, I'm sure, but you know what I mean. But I just felt like he gets frozen up when stuff like that comes at him. And he also doesn't check or know how to defend any of the kicks. He takes a really heavy boxing approach. And I think that kind of cost him in this fight. And I think if he could work on that stuff and add, he needs a little bit of cardio and he needs a little bit of kick defense and offense. If he could add those to his game, I think this could be a dangerous dude. Pereira's no joke, man. And he looked good in the first round. It's just, can you sustain that over the course of 3 rounds? It's hard for people to do, and especially at a very high level in the UFC. So Pereira looked good, and he struggled in the first round, but made a big comeback and ended up picking up the win. All right, now here we go. Co-main event, flyweight title between Brandon Moreno and Deiveson Figueiredo. Third match between these two. First one ends in a draw. Figueiredo probably won, honestly, but the eye pokes deducted a point, right? Second fight, Moreno chokes him out. And this third fight here, everyone's like, all right, what's going to happen? Who's going to make the adjustments? So a lot of people felt like Moreno won the fight. And I got to be honest, I think it was so close. Like, I don't think it's a robbery either way. When I first initially watched the fight, I scored rounds 1 and 3 for Deiveson Figueiredo. And I scored 2, 4, and 5 for Moreno, right? When I was watching it live. And then, the reason I wait to like react to this stuff on Sunday as opposed to like I'll put out a breakdown and stuff Saturday night sometimes, but I really like to digest everything that happened. And then Sunday morning I rewatch like usually the entire fight card. So I rewatched like the whole fight card this morning and scored it again. I still think that Deiveson Figueiredo won the first and the third round, but I also think that Figueiredo might have won the fifth. I really do. I think Figueiredo, I think this was a well-earned victory for him, and I thought he looked much improved. But let's kind of walk through each of the rounds and why I'm leaning towards Figueiredo a little bit. Close fight. Like I said, if you want to give it to Moreno, I have no problem with that, but I don't think this was robbery or anything like that. So, first round, I felt like Figueiredo was just doing really good damage with those outside calf kicks that he was landing. He wasn't also, it's not like they were just landing and hurting Moreno. And this was kind of the theme throughout the fight. When Moreno would land on Figueiredo, he would hurt him and it would like wobble him. And you could tell he was on like sailor, like, or he had like loose, you know what I mean? Like sea legs and shit. Like he was like wobbly, but he wasn't dropping Figueiredo. Figueiredo kept dropping Moreno. And I think that had a big impact in the eyes of the judges. And in my eyes too, honestly. I mean, he was taking his feet out from underneath them. Those calf kicks were a huge deal in the first round. And another thing, Figueiredo's wrestling looked much improved. Like I know that Moreno hit a takedown in the fifth, but throughout the fight, I kind of felt like Figueiredo had a wrestling advantage, even if he was making Moreno work, right? So that first round, I gave to Figueiredo. He also finished it with some nice front kicks to the body up against the cage. I just felt like he did a little bit more. And I know Moreno, he hit that fancy like spinning kick to the calf of Figueiredo, and he hit him with the right hand that wobbled him a little bit. But while he threw that right hand, Figueiredo chopped his leg out from under him. He dropped him like 3 or 4 times in the first round with leg kicks. I rewatched the fight, like I said, and I still feel like Figueiredo won round 1, right? Round 2, I thought belonged to Moreno pretty clearly. I think these were 2 of the more obvious rounds, if I'm being honest. Like I think all the rounds were competitive, but in the second round, you really started seeing Moreno. In particular, his lead hand was doing a lot of work, a lot of left hooks. He was finding home for the jab a little bit more, just a little bit more activity from him, mixing in some leg kicks of his own. And then the third round, this was probably, if it hadn't ended the way it did, would have gave this round to Moreno, even though it was close. You guys got to remember in this third round, right? Also in the first round, I think that Figueiredo might have landed a takedown. Anyway, third round comes around. And Moreno, again, we were talking about how like Moreno kept touching Figueiredo and hurting him a little bit, like causing him to wobble. But in the third, Figueiredo caught Moreno with a shot that literally sent him back sprawling like across the octagon. And then, he was able to like engage in the clinch a little bit more. And then I felt like Moreno really came on strong after that moment. He really came on strong and started winning the round. But then Figueiredo dropped him, and he dropped him bad, and he immediately started hunting for a guillotine choke. And that was in the last 10 seconds of the third round. So, dropped him twice, still attacking with the leg kicks and stuff. Third round was close, but I just feel like when you have potential fight-ending moments like that, you have to land. Yeah, Dennis, I think I just saw your shit. Like I said, I'm switching back and forth between tabs. I couldn't agree more. I really I try to give them the benefit of the doubt, but they were like, after the first round ended, Joe was like, "This is the best version of Brandon Moreno we've ever seen." I was like, "He's getting his legs chopped out from underneath him, and he's losing the round." What do you mean? And I also felt like, I don't know if you guys got this impression from Moreno, a little bit too confident. Like, I kind of thought he'd come into this with that championship mentality, and he did, but he was a little too confident, a little too like doing this kind of shit all the time. Like, It's like, no, dude, you're in a fight. Like, I understand, like, you're taunting. There's a lot of animosity between you two right now, but like, I agree. I did kind of feel like the commentary was a little bit biased, and I felt like Figueiredo was doing better work than DC and Joe were leaving you to believe. I think the second round, again, sorry, I got sidetracked. First round, Figueiredo. Second round, Moreno. Third round, I think the damage, the fact that he knocked him down, he was hitting him with bigger shots. His shots had more impact, right? And DC kept saying like, oh, it's bothering him. Yeah, it was bothering him, but Figueiredo was literally dropping Moreno to the ground over and over again. So third round, he lands that big shot that sends Moreno across the cage, gets around behind his back at one point, right? And then, man, I'm getting shit mixed up in my head, but I know for sure that Figueiredo dropped him bad at the end of the third and dropped him pretty bad towards the beginning of the third. Moreno did good work throughout the middle of the third round, but Figueiredo opened and closed it very strong. And when you close strong, it looks good on the judges' scorecards. And I thought that moment at the end of the third round was the most significant strike of the fight. Fourth round, in my opinion, was the hardest to score, right? So right now, going into the fourth, I've got Figueiredo up 2-1. I thought the fourth round went to Moreno. I just thought he did a little bit more. There's a little bit less happening in terms of the damage and the big moments and stuff, but I just felt like Moreno barely edged it out. But you got to think, if you gave 1 and 3 to Figueiredo like I did, and you felt like Figueiredo won the fourth round, I don't think that's egregious at all. And you could be up, Figueiredo could very well on some people's scorecards be up 3-1 heading into the fifth, meaning Moreno would need a finish, right? I personally thought it was tied up heading into the fifth. Like I said, the fourth round, I felt like Moreno did just enough to edge it out, right? And then we get to the fifth again, and he dropped him again. Figueiredo dropped him again, and it was a close fifth round, and it ended with I think when it ended, Moreno was getting the better of the exchanges, throwing with a little bit more volume and all that. But after watching it back, honestly, guys, I felt like Figueiredo won the fifth round. So I gave rounds 1, 3, and 5 to Figueiredo, and 2 and 4 to Moreno. I thought that the victory was right. And like I said, those fourth and fifth rounds to me are the ones that are kind of up for debate. I thought 1 and 3 were pretty clear. And I thought 2 was pretty clear for Moreno. 4 and 5 are iffy, man. I got to be honest. I wouldn't even be upset if the judges had given Figueiredo 4 rounds. I really wouldn't. I thought that it was super competitive. This is a close-ass fight, and I think these guys got to run it back again. And, another thing, I think, like we talked about this a little bit earlier, it felt like Deiveson, and also in the beginning of the fifth round, Brendan Moreno got to double unders and was able to land that beautiful takedown, but Figueiredo right back to his feet. For the most part, it felt like Figueiredo was controlling the wrestling exchanges. I don't know if that's a benefit of working with Henry Cejudo, but it didn't feel like the takedown threat was really there from Moreno like it was in previous fights. And, he wasn't able to string combinations together. I also felt like Moreno had a tougher time closing off the distance. He wasn't working the body as effectively in their second fight. If you watch, he was throwing a lot of shots, like throwing combinations, going up top, going downstairs. It felt like he was able to be a little bit more aggressive. And Figueiredo was working on some things to help hold the range a little bit because Moreno had trouble closing that distance off and getting to takedowns. So close fight. I wouldn't disagree with you if you said you gave it to Moreno, but Yeah, agreed. Knockdowns make a big difference in scoring, man. It's a huge, the fact that he kept planning Moreno on his ass, I think was a huge part of the fight. Even though, like, you know, DC was right. I do clearly think that like Figueiredo was bothered by it, but he wasn't getting dropped by it. He was able to hold himself up a little bit better. So fuck. If you gave it to Moreno, I have no I have no qualms with that at all. Whatever the fuck the word is, right? Like I have no problem with that at all. I think that it could have went to Moreno personally, and I got to be honest. I'm watching it as a fan too, right? Like I'm just enjoying it. But when I watched it back this morning, trying to judge it and be honest and assess it, I felt like Figueiredo took 1, 3, and 5. All right, main event kicks off, and as soon as Francis Ngannou walks out, I go, "What the fuck's on his knees?" He's wearing these like knee sleeves and shit, and I'm like, "Okay." Never seen him wearing those before, and I immediately thought some sort of knee injury, right? I was thinking like meniscus, blah, blah, blah. And the first round starts, and Cyril Gane's just picking him apart, right? Doing a good job of staying out of the way of the power. And you could also maybe like there is like a rigidity to the way, like not everything is super technical from Francis, even when he's throwing. He overextend his power is just so fucking incredible that it doesn't matter. But he makes mistakes on the feet. He's not as technical as Gane on the feet. But after seeing those knee sleeves, and seeing the way he performed and the way he was moving, it felt like he was afraid to put a lot of weight into his punches, right? Guys, when you're throwing punches and you're hunting for like you're twisting your hips, right, when you throw. And you're also consequently your knees going to turn a little bit. It puts a lot of pressure on your knees. If your knees are beat up, it's going to take away from a lot of the power. And you could see too that like there were moments where Cyril Gane was like evading and slipping out of the way. And Ngannou was like wanting to chase him down, but didn't trust in his knees to do it. That's really how I felt. And then when he goes back to the corner, Eric Nixick's like, get up and give me a bounce. And I think he was trying to like drill it into Ngannou's head that if you move a little bit and bounce on these legs, Gane won't think something. He'll just think, man, maybe there's like, it's tweaked. It's not really injured, right? Anyway, Gane clearly wins the second round. Gane looked great on the feet, man. But then the third round comes around. And in Ngannou, I'm like, all right, I felt like Gane was just going to cruise to a victory at this point. I felt like Gane was just working him, getting out of the way of the big shots. I felt like Ngannou didn't have any confidence in his knees to throw anything big. We didn't see this wasn't like typical. This was like Derek Lewis and Ngannou on the feet a little bit, throwing some stuff, but like nothing really that he felt confident in. But then Cyril Gane throws that spinning back kick, and Ngannou catches it and fucking slams him on the ground. And guys, this I think is what I'm most impressed with Francis Ngannou. It's his ability to improve so quickly. If you look back at his fight against Stipe Miocic, when Stipe took him down, he was lacking like white belt fundamentals on the ground to get back to his feet. Like, I don't even think he knew how to like bridge into his opponent to create space and try to hip escape, right? Like, I don't think he knew any of that. And then you watch him fight Stipe again, and his takedown defense is fucking on point, right? Like, looked great, and it ended up kind of winning him the fight, in my opinion. Goes on and ends up in this like, and when he landed the takedown, I was like, all right, that's just a big, powerful movement. But no, guys, when he was on top, he was looking for shoulder pressure. He was getting the crossface. He was leaning into it. He was trying to advance through positions. And I know a lot of people are saying it's like lay and pray, but you got to remember, these are two big boys. The movements get slowed down a lot. And when Ngannou got there, I know that he wasn't like landing a lot of big shots, but he was kind of dominating Gane because you know that Gane wanted to get back to his feet and he couldn't. I thought that like the jiu-jitsu, the wrestling looked a lot better, but the jiu-jitsu from Francis Ngannou looked much improved to me. He, like I said, he was looking for cross faces, like getting good shoulder pressure and trying to advance into mount at different times. And like, it might not have been the cleanest, but I thought what you saw was like between blue and purple belt jiu-jitsu. And you got to consider where he came from and the limited grappling experience he had before that and how he looked against Stipe. These are massive improvements, man. He hit double leg. He was hitting mat returns, right? So the third round definitely went to Francis. And then now Cyril Gane did work his way back to his feet in the third, land a spinning elbow and shit like that. So like he was doing damage still, but Francis landed another takedown, right? And like also when you're a big guy like that, those takedowns are impactful, right? Like they're big movements. So the judges score them heavily. And then Ngannou was able to stay on top for most of the fight, most of the round. Fourth round comes around. He goes out and gets takedowns again. And again, he's like trying to advance in the mount and all this shit. But then the big moment, right, was in the 5th round. And I didn't really understand the game plan from Cyril Gane, right? Um, he goes out and he's been dotting Ngannou up on the feet, which is where you would think he would want to stay. Like almost every single exchange that Francis Ngannou and Cyril Gane got into on the feet, I felt like Cyril Gane was winning. I mean, like every single one, like even Francis connected with like 2 shots with significance that I can remember, and they came back to back. He hit him with like a right hand, and I think even Gane partially deflected that. And then he hit him with like a left hook to the body that hit him more in the back, right? Other than that, this was Gane's fight on the feet. Gane comes out, shoots a single leg, gets the takedown, and then Francis just goes to his back. And I was like, well, fuck, there's your fight. Like the guy who got on top is going to win. But no, Francis Ngannou starts fucking looking for triangles and stuff. He's opening up his guards. Like the improvements that he's made, drastic, guys. Drastic improvements. Like looking to control the arm of Cyril Gane. And you know, like I said, he's hunting for this triangle, putting pressure on the arm. I think I'm going to do a breakdown of the sweep that he hit because it was the most important moment in the fight, and it came in the 5th round. So anyway, they're sitting there, and then it looks like Cyril Gane, while he has his arm trapped, by the way, tries to go over and hit a leg lock on Ngannou, and Ngannou just sweeps Cyril Gane, ends up on top, and closes the last half of the round out on top. So for me, Ngannou undoubtedly won the last 3 rounds because he put Cyril Gane in a position that he didn't want to be in. And then in the 5th round, when Cyril Gane, even though he initiated the takedown, he wasn't able to maintain top position the same way that Francis Ngannou was. I know this wasn't the big knockout that everybody expected from Francis, but if you're looking at him as a martial artist, you have to be impressed with the improvements that he's made. I mean, like I said, got taken down, and I thought the fight was fucking over. I was like, Francis is just going to be on his back the whole time here, not going to be able to get up. No, immediately started digging for an underhook, trying to get to his side, trying to isolate Francis Ngannou, looking for a triangle, and eventually use that opportunity to sweep, get on top, start cross-facing and applying shoulder pressure. And yeah, he didn't do a ton of damage, man, but it's like, what do you want from the guy? He's doing what he can. He like I said, the improvements that he's made have been drastic in my opinion. And he's one of the, like, I'm just so impressed with his ability to learn, I guess. That to me is the most impressive thing about Francis Ngannou. Is like, it seems like when you show him this stuff, he picks. Also, another thing, if you guys watch the fight, when he was on top, he is constantly hunting for wrist control. Like, always looking for wrist control. And that's why Cyril Gane was having such a hard time getting back to his feet. Gane did a good job defensively, not eating big shots from Francis. But Francis's control looked much improved. He was trying to take the back. He was trying to throw up. Like I said, couldn't be more impressed with him, man. And I just, fuck, man. Like I said, I felt like Ngannou won clearly, and it might not have been what everybody expected it to be or the way that they expected it to go, but to me, it showed more wrinkles in the game of Francis Ngannou, and that's a scary thing. His takedowns look good. I mean, and it's not like he was just like brute forcing his way through stuff. I mean, granted, the motherfucker's strong as hell, but he was hitting his takedowns with legit technique. The timing on them and everything, the one takedown that he hit where he's like baited Gane into stepping forward, came around behind him and took him the other way. All beautiful stuff from Francis, man. And I know it's not what people, you know what else I fucking hate? I hate the term lay and pray, because people who use that term, I feel like I've never been in a fight, like an MMA fight, never. But I do a lot of jiu-jitsu. And when you're fucking dead tired in a competition, it is incredibly difficult to keep your opponent in a position that you want him to be in. And think about these two big boys, high level. You know that Cyril Gane's got dangerous like leg lock attempts and stuff. And I just thought Francis handled it beautifully and overcame a lot of adversity in this fight, honestly. And then considering all the damage to his knees and everything, man, shit. I felt like I couldn't be more impressed with Francis. I don't really understand all of the hate against him or whatever. I saw some people saying they gave it 3-2 to Gane, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? How do you score that fight for Gane? Like, clearly won the first 2 rounds, but the last 3, all Francis. And you could tell, like, the look in Cyril Gane's eyes, he did not want to be on the bottom. And then he admitted in the post-fight press conference that the one way that Francis Ngannou probably had to win was through the grappling. I thought that fucking Ngannou was just going to come out, disrespect that space, and just charge him until he landed a big shot. But he had to take a little bit more of a patient approach, maybe because of his knees. and he made adjustments, guys. And that's what championship fighters do. They make adjustments. And couldn't be more impressed with his improvements on the ground. I keep saying it over and over and over again, but it's true, man. I thought blown away by it. Honestly, and to fight back from being 2 rounds down and all that shit, very tough. And especially considering like the fact that they used to be all the stuff going in this fight, the fact that Gane and Ngannou used to be teammates, the contract dispute stuff with Francis. I will tell you what, though, after seeing that, I really don't want to see Ngannou go box Tyson Fury. I think that Ngannou's striking is still too green. Like when you look at Wilder has ridiculous power, but he practices boxing all the time, and he still only found a couple opportunities to land on Tyson Fury. And again, it could have been because of the knees, it could have been whatever. I don't like Ngannou going to fight Tyson Fury. I think Tyson Fury would dot him up a little bit, man. I do. I think that if Ngannou lands on you, it's all different, right? But just like when you look at how Gane was able to control the distance and stuff, and granted he can throw kicks, blah, 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 spinning techniques, I think that Tyson Fury in a pure boxing match just pieces Ngannou up and fucks him up pretty bad, if I'm being honest. But put him in a fucking octagon, man. I don't know. Ngannou's the baddest man on the planet right now. But anyway, that's going to wrap this one up, guys. I appreciate you all tuning in. How would you counter the wrist rods? It's tough, man. You gotta set other things up and like kind of misdirect your opponent so that he focuses on something else so that you can get like to an advantageous position and get your underhooks. Like you'll notice too that like when Ngannou took Cyril Gane down, Gane was never hunting for underhooks even when the opportunity was there. And the first thing that Ngannou did when Gane took him down is hunt for underhooks. And when you threaten an underhook, your opponent has to deal with that because you have leverage that you can take him over with. And then you start, you know what I mean? He was always controlling the wrists and stuff. So I think it's more about your setups and everything and how you misdirect your opponent so that they're not focusing on your wrist. You have to threaten with other stuff. It's very hard, especially if fucking Ngannou is grabbing your wrist. It's going to be hard to just slip out of that, right? Like there's some maneuvers you can do to like if somebody's grabbing your hand like this, right? You have to think like, what direction can you break the grip in? Right? This way, right? This way. You can't break it into it. So you have to think about like twisting shit out this way. And it's hard to do when you got a big guy on top of you and he's also pinning that wrist to the ground. I don't know. So I think like misdirection and then working away from the grips, right? Like away from it. Like you can never push into it, but you can work away from the grips extremely effectively. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap this one up. I'm going to do a breakdown, I think, on the girl's name that I can't pronounce that fucking jumped into Joe. I'm going to have to listen to John Anik say her name like 10 times and put it into my memory. But I'm going to do a breakdown on that. And I'm going to do a breakdown of at least the sweep. Using 2 hands to break that wrist wrap. Exactly. Like if you put 2 hands on it, now you're exposing yourself to shots, which is why grappling in MMA is a lot more honest. Like in jiu-jitsu, if somebody was doing that, you could just kind of try to latch onto it and break that grip. And you might sacrifice positioning, but you're not going to get hit in the mouth. So yeah, like 2-on-1 grips and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm going to try to get, at the very least, I'm going to look at the sweep that Ngannou hit. And I know that people were like, oh, big mistake from Cyril Gane going for the leg lock. And true, big mistake, big fight IQ mistake. But it was the timing on the sweep that Francis Ngannou hit, right? Like it was a beautiful sweep. It was a well-timed sweep. And it was a lot that Francis was doing from the bottom that led to him being able to get on top and control in the 5th round. And you guys saw, like when Ngannou got on top, he controlled Gane in a way that Gane couldn't control him. So beautiful performance. That's going to wrap this one up, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up. And like I said, keep an eye out for the breakdown on, oh my God, I literally still can't pronounce her name. That girl who jumped into Joe Rogan's arms. I'm going to break down that arm bar. And then I'm going to break down some of the grappling transitions. In particular, I'm going to definitely look at the sweep that Francis Ngannou hit against Gane. So thank you guys again. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Enjoy some playoff football, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.